the leader of he comes from a long background working in social justice and social housing and creating real change in communities, and then brought that into the rugby world. He led Harlequins Rugby Club down in London for a number of years, and now he's heading up MyCai, this incredible new organization working really at the crux of accelerating change and using athletes to make that change happen. And it's really kind of a special corner of the world, and some of the folks in the room who you'll hear from have been in that world for a long time, engaging directly, making sure that the world is a better place, and we can make sport part of that change. So we're very excited that you've chosen to join us, and I'll pass the mic off to David to get the ball rolling on the workshop, but do be ready to participate and share your experience and share your stories. And even if this is the very beginning of your climate journey or your social justice journey, that's totally cool. Wherever you are, this is for you. And we're excited to be facilitating it.
Thank you, Maddie. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's wonderful to be here, and thank you for the kind introduction, and just again, thank you for all you guys that have turned up. Today for us is really about helping have an interactive experience. This isn't a talking at shop. This is hopefully an opportunity for you to meet new acquaintances, find a place, a new community to help us begin the journey of working out how to have a positive impact and what you're trying to achieve, or to go further with the journey you're already on. So I will just try and encourage everyone to ask questions, get involved. I know there's a lot of people online and people here, so we can learn from each other and come away with a sense of community afterwards would be awesome. So if I could just work out how to use the clicker. Red button? No? There we go. Perfect. So we're just going to sort of give some observations about the journey we're trying to go on, what's happening at COP, how can we as a community try and make a positive difference. To help maybe bring that to light, we've got Joe, who's come to talk to us, one of our professional cricketer here. We're going to talk to him about the journey he's been on to see if we can learn from that, hear what he's been up to, all the sort of challenges and the great things he's been on. And then we're going to try and take that into a breakout session and really sort of discuss some of the things we've been talking about in the first half of this. So without further ado, this really it's been a remarkable week at COP. There's been so much going on, and there's so much positivity, but actually, because there's so much going on, it's hard sometimes to make sense of it. So what is my role in this journey? What is happening around us, and how can I make a positive impact? But I thought it would be interesting to pull out some key themes, and then maybe hear from you guys about what are the key themes you're hearing about at COP and your experiences so far. And actually, it's the number one thing I keep hearing is we can't do this alone. No one is exempt from the need to act. I think the key things now that are happening, actually the scale and the speed that we need to react to some of the problems we're facing from a climate perspective means that we have to work out how to collaborate as a community to build that sort of tidal wave of positive energy to do something. I don't know from you guys' perspective, have you had some themes and some thoughts that you're hearing around the edges, or things that you're hearing from COP that have made you sit up and listen? I'm throwing it straight out there.
I said it first, I'm really excited about it. At first, I remember thinking how excited I am about the conference, but I feel like what I've been reading recently has made me feel a bit jaded about what's been happening. So if anything, that kind of inspired me to try and do more myself and see if I can act.
Yeah, I think I would second that. I think it seems like public opinion is really going in the right direction, but maybe policymakers aren't acting as urgently as the science is telling us. And I think that that's a bit concerning, and yeah, it makes me want to do more as well. So.
I think we're really seeing the need to be forcing politicians and decision makers to be acting in line with what most people want. And I think that's really the power of sport, is reaching a wider audience who maybe aren't as concerned about climate, and really taking away one of the places that politicians love to go and hide with sport. and sort of appear relevant to people.
Thank you, guys. And yeah, I think that sense of understanding our role as sport to keep people excited and positive, but also keep people holding to account, I think is definitely a theme that's coming through. Is there any questions from online, or can I do that? I think if anyone has any observations from what they're feeling about COP. Not sure if we can. Okay. I'll move through, but it's this genuine feeling of how do we make collective action? And I think if there's one thing, I saw this from one of the environmentalists that put out on his Twitter account that says, actually, you know what? If there's a theme, if there's something, and we're all saying it, it's the time for chat is over. This is the time for do. So what is the action that we need to collectively take to make a difference to the planet? It says, my next button won't work. No? Slow down a bit. But then there's a sense of, actually, by the time you come through your week, there's so much going on. There's so much sort of different opportunities. You go to one session, you hear amazing things that technology is doing to bring sort of sequester carbon out of the atmosphere, and you go to another session that's about the exponential thoughts of some of the youth of today, and it's all of these things coming. But it's that sense of how do I find my place in amongst this? And in order to have an impact, which is what we're trying to say today, is how do I find my role? How do I take and position myself to have an impact? And actually there's something around, well, how am I feeling? What's my emotions about all of these things that are going on? And what can I do about it? And the quicker we can sort of take those feelings of what I think I want to do and what I can do, and relate that to what's my ability to do something, and connect that together, gets you to that point of impact really quickly. So I saw this the other day, and actually it reminded me a lot of the journey that we're trying to go on as Maikai, and as Maddie kindly introduced us. What we're trying to do here is actually, if there's 9 out of 10 people are willing to take action on climate change, you can't actually see that, that's obviously gone off the screen. 7 out of 10 are worried about what they can do and what their role is, but actually 4 out of 10 are only doing something. And the whole reason we really set up Maikai was to turn around and go, how can we turn that 4 out of 10 into what do I do? How do I make that into 9 out of 10? And so from a perspective of what we're trying to do here and try and share some of what we've got as a program with all of you, is to say, okay, how do we all mobilize and find our place in the world to impact on it positively? And we actually use the framework of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So yes, we're here at COP, but actually what we're looking at is, what are the 16 or 17 things that if we got right, this is the world strategy for a better place. And this is the driving force for us at Maikai. How do we do that? Well, what we're trying to do, and we're working with a whole bunch of different people, is to build impact programs and campaigns that change the world, but through sports as its center, with athletes to amplify that change. And we talk about supercharging positive change. And that's our entire modus operandi, is wherever you are on your journey, whatever you're focused on, how can we supercharge that change so that has a massive impact on society? And the key focus for us on that is actually goal number 17, which is partnerships. So the approach we're trying to take, and the approach which we think we should all be trying to take as athletes, is how do you build that ecosystem around you? So how do we all convene around the problems that we're trying to fix? And what support do you need? What is it? Do you need technology? Do you need media help? Do we need NGOs to come together? What is the ecosystem we can build around you as an individual to help you create the most impact that you want to achieve? And that's our approach to what we're trying to do here. And that's how we think we're trying to build those campaigns. There's elements of those campaigns that says, okay, as I'm going on this journey, as I'm going to work out what I'm good at or what I can do more about, there's a whole bunch of other levers, and these are the levers that help create positive developmental change. Oh, do we need money to scale those projects? How can we get technology involved to make sure we can answer some smart questions? And what are the spaces we need to create to allow those projects to grow, and so that you can help drive that development? But actually, a whole bunch of this is around, well, first of all, where do I start? And when you're going on this journey, it's actually sitting back and going, what gives me energy? What gives me nourishment? What allows me to think about, actually, what's my compass of what do I do next? And to sort of sit back and think about what's the story I want to tell, I think is a really important element as a first step. Some of you will have already gone on that story. I know David and I think Melissa's on the call are doing some great things I've heard personally. And then it's, so what can we go to the next stage with? How can, as you go down this sort of the understanding of what do I care about, to how do I have the most impact possible? And some of you might already be on that journey, which is fantastic. Some of you might still be deciding about what is it I care about? How do I go through that program of being aware, understanding, having more knowledge, but all the way through to, right, now I can supercharge this. I can say, actually, this is what I care about. This is what I'm trying to have an impact on. And here are the people that we will convene and call upon to make sure that that change has constant resonance and constant repetition and proper impact as a program. There's a whole bunch of space we need to look at as well, which is actually these are massive systemic global challenges. How do we bring that down to what it means to me and what my role is within that? And then what does it mean within my community? And how can I help navigate through those different issues? All of these are different convening thoughts that can sometimes stop us acting and can sometimes make it difficult for us to align behind what is the most important thing I can do right now. So what I was trying to do there is set us up to say, actually, there's a whole bunch of different things that as athletes, as humans, that we have to consider before we take action. And from the perspective of what are the steps I can take, then we tried to build frameworks, we tried to share opportunities, but actually the whole thing is around how do you take your first step? How do you convene the ecosystem around you and your personal objectives to grow to that next stage of impact? So for this next stage, I'd like to invite Joe, professional cricketer here in England, to come up and just talk about so far his journey. And then what we'd like to do is break that question out into all of us to have a discussion. There's going to be some breakout sessions in Zoom where we can all start working about what's our next moves, what are the things that we care about. Okay. I think it's on. Perfect. Joe.
Hello.
Tell us a bit about yourself.
So yeah, my sustainability journey is kind of pretty much just starting really. I've been professional for 2 years at Glamorgan County Cricket Club now. And since in my spare time, just been basically extending my studies. So I studied climate change at university quite a lot, learned a lot about the science. And then since becoming a professional cricketer, I've used my spare time just to try and, be part of the change, learn more about sustainability. So I started basically by volunteering at Friends of the Earth. That was my first step in kind of activism, which was great. And I learned so much, and I still work for them a bit now. I actually had a story out yesterday on one of the campaigns we got going around getting supermarkets to put doors on fridges. So that was a big part of my journey. But then, yeah, so I'm just starting now, and I've just started to work with Mike as well, and excited to try and do more. What was the other questions?
So what is your positive change you're trying to enact, and how did you work out what your positive change was, the thing that you wanted to start journeying on?
So the big thing that what I'm passionate about is, and what I think is most important in the sustainability journey is, isn't a big thing, but decarbonisation, which I think is just the biggest thing. Is if we can do that well, then lots of things will fall into place. So that's what I really want to be a part of helping. So yeah, that's my main goal, is to help with that. But then since I've been at Glamorgan, I've also started working with them and their sustainability of them as a business. So for now, it's for me trying to use my spare time to help Glamorgan become more sustainable, which is so important for me, because I think that's quite cool to be part of your own club and make them have less of an impact on the environment. So that, the climate is my main passion. So they're my main goals, is to try and focus on that and try and make a difference.
And what got you interested in the climate in the first place? How did you decide that this is what you wanted to go after?
Yeah, so I think you have to have a personal attachment to a problem to really care about it. So the thing for me, as I was talking earlier with Jackie already, was studying at a university and really realizing how the climate crisis is going to affect my sport, as selfish as that sounds, realizing that, you know, in Australia, 50 degrees could be commonplace, and by the mid-century, you're not going to play cricket in that, and realizing that my sport's actually going to be affected. I know it sounds selfish, but having the personal attachment to the problem made a difference. And in that respect, I think that sport can be great at doing that in terms of awareness. So yeah, that was the first thing. And then, like I say, in my spare time, I just wanted to learn more and make a difference.
And did anything, when you were thinking about how to go and make that difference, did anything hold you back initially, sort of before you took that first sort of commitment to moving towards making a positive impact?
Yeah, definitely. And it continues to all the time, obviously, because I remember like there was a time this summer when I was asked to do an interview with Sky Sports, but I just got a couple of ducks on the trot. Glamorgan had been doing great, and I had to say no because I didn't want to get that message of just shut up and get better at cricket. Yeah. So yeah, that's my main thing that really worries me. But also, obviously, what scares me is, you look at someone like Marcus Rashford. I'm not comparing myself to him, by the way. I know he's massive, but you look at all the trolls he gets on Twitter, and that really scares me. Yeah. In terms of putting yourself out there to that kind of abuse is definitely scary, but it's worth it, and hopefully I'll be able to block it out when it comes.
No, great. And in terms of the journey you're on, how can other people help you? We talk about building this sort of the ecosystem and the partnerships around you to help with media, help with connecting the dots to amplify all this good work you're doing. What do you need for your next phase?
Yeah, I think there's so many things that you need to help you, but that's the reason I've asked Maikai to help me. I think a big thing is learning more, so that whenever I'm asked these questions, I know exactly the knowledge, what's happening in the world, and meeting people to do that, which I think Maikai could do really well. But then also, obviously, helping you make the actions. So I've kind of got these opportunities to, for example, work with Glamorgan that I perhaps wouldn't have got if I wasn't a sports person. So I feel a little bit thrown in at the deep end, but Maikai are going to be there, hopefully, to help me, actually do this really well with Glamorgan, for example, and then also with my other things as well. Just, I think it's a support network that you need in whatever you're doing. So, as a sports person, you need a support network. But yeah.
And is there anything specifically in the support network that would be helpful in this next phase?
I think that what I said about knowledge is probably one of the biggest things, but then also obviously helping me make the actions. So not only getting to meet people and getting to talk about it, but helping me to know exactly what to do and what to do to make that next step. And yeah.
And what would be success for you?
I think obviously a big goal personally is to, like I said, be part of the decarbonisation process in whatever way possible. And the big dream would be to actually either influence policy, or if that's not possible, then to actually do my own kind of energy production or some way of producing energy and helping. So in that respect, that would be a big thing for me. But then also, like for example, the other day, just got a friend messaging me saying, "You're actually making me make changes," and stuff like that. It's just brilliant, and that's what I do it for, really.
No, fantastic. And if there was, a bunch of partners you could have on your journey, outside either brands or universities, is there anyone that you think actually that would supercharge what I'm trying to do?
What do you mean by partners? Just
thinking, is a business like, natural energy businesses to sort of help amplify what you're trying to say with their customer base, or universities that have done, research into these areas that can help give your voice credibility. Those types of things are the partners definitely. That you think actually, that would help us go another bit further to delivering on what we're trying to do. Yeah,
definitely. And like you mentioned there, if I actually really want to seriously commit to renewable energy, then obviously I need support from renewable energies businesses, but then also academics, like you say. But yeah, there's so many partners that can help you, and I think that's where Maikai plays brilliantly to kind of put that together from the athlete's perspective to then also the business perspective to actually make the action.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Is there any questions of Joe? Okay. Guys, so we're going to do a breakout now. So what we're trying to sort of get you guys to, I think you're going to have groups of 4, groups of 5. We just want to talk about, do you know, have you thought about what you want to be in terms of the journey you're looking to engage on, the positive change you'd like to talk about, like to influence? What is your story? What is the story you'd like to go on? Some of you will already be on that story. So what's the next chapter of that story, perhaps? And then, is there anything stopping you going on that journey? Or is there anything stopping you achieve that ultimate goal? And how can we identify those blockers? Because then what is the support we can all help you with? What is the support that as a community we can help each other with to amplify that impact so that we can make collectively greater change? So I'm just going to ask Maddie and the team to now break everyone out, and we'll do that for like 10, 15 minutes, having a chat, and then ask for one person in the group to maybe feed some things back, and we'll convene again in about 10 minutes. Is that working? Cool. We broken that?
Hi, everyone. So it looks like we've got Emma and Angelica. Welcome to the breakout room. And just see if we've got anyone else due as well or not.
Hello.
If not, we might have quite a small room, because I think we've managed to somehow end up with the main event in here too. So,
I have a lot of background noise. It's really hard for me to hear you.
let me change my headphones quickly.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Yeah, hi, I'll go first. My name's Emma Mason. I'm a retired athlete, actually, former badminton player. Played badminton for Scotland until the Commonwealth Games in 2010, and I've been heavily involved in the, let's say, sports administration and sports politics since that time. I'm also professionally working in a role in the sporting goods industry, where sustainability has become a really key topic around the future of sports and obviously the products and items that we use when we're competing. So yeah, I've been very interested with today's session so far.
That's great. Is the background noise any better now?
I think it's fine. It's just because you're obviously in a loud room. No worries. I can hear you now.
It's all good. Oh, okay, that's good. I changed the settings. And Angelica, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Angelica Widraugo. I'm a swimmer and I'm also a PhD student. My research focuses on renewable energies and CO2 utilization technologies. So right now what I do is converting waste into electricity. So this is my fight for the to stop climate change.
That's great. I'm moderating. I'm currently at the event, which is probably why I heard the background noise. My name's Meredith. I'm currently a master's student at Coventry in sustainability. I'm just here to kind of help facilitate discussion, etc. as well. Let me just quickly share the screen. So, shall we just start with the first question? So what is it that you would like to change for the positive, basically, either in sport or in general with the entire world, which is obviously quite a broad question.
I can go first, and it's maybe a bit of an abstract one, but I would like to change for the positive that people feel that they know exactly how they can make a difference, because I think that right now it's still very, it's not completely uncertain. I'm sure Angelica will share with us about her research and ways that we can, but I think it's still entirely unclear the steps that an individual person, let alone someone involved in sport who wants to continue to promote the, obviously there's some really strong sustainable elements around sport if you look at the SDGs as a whole, but how do we tackle the climate change issue? So I think I would love for it to be much easier for us to identify the steps or the practical steps that we should take as a community.
Yeah, that's great. And Angelica, anything to add as well?
Well, right now what I'm trying to change is, well, I'm not trying to change anything. I'm just trying to make sure people have access to electricity. They don't have to give up anything to in order to stop global warming, because electricity is a luxury for African people, but it's a must for European countries and America. It's really hard to give up on it. And transportation is actually another sector that is actually, let's say, a part of global warming, like increasing it. And I'm trying to provide these resources that can, replace fossil fuels. So, well, in my side, I think trying to teach people how to manage the waste would be a great change, because the upstream, like how people recycle the waste, is an important part for my research. When they do that, then it's easier to convert waste, and a positive change would be people trying to learn about that and make an effort to reduce the trash, and also make an effort to recycle them, do it the right way, learn about it. That would make a really positive change for the world.
Yeah, that's great. This is such a broad topic, isn't it? Between everything that's going on, there's so many different angles that you can take from everyone's own experiences as well. So on that, if we can kind of combine the next two questions as well into one almost. The PowerPoint on the screen actually says something slightly different, which says what's stopping you, and this obviously says what are you scared about. So it's kind of two questions in one there. So Emma, is there anything that you feel might be stopping you being able, either whether it's personally or something systematically, that's stopping the change that you'd like to see, for example?
Well, I think maybe I'll address the second question first, just because I think it is important to look at that, which is, for me, sport is such a big contributor in a positive way to the SDGs, right? Whether you look about active, healthy living, empowerment of women and girls, there's a huge variety of topics through which we are positive contributors. But then there is also, when you look at international sport, the way it's structured, the amount of travel that's involved, the amount of stadiums and product, et cetera, that is needed to put on international sport. There's also this area that we haven't yet come to terms with, and that we haven't yet got around to dealing with. So I think I'm scared about that being a new, let's say, challenge for sport generally, a challenge for funding, a challenge for the continuation of it, because we've been through our ups and downs with anti-doping problems, which have caused a huge amount of public concern about the money that's being pumped into sport right now. And if we are not getting on top of the sustainability issue and really starting to address the ways in which we are negative contributors to the SDGs, I think that will be a risk for sport and sport infrastructure overall, and not just the elite level, but also for grassroots level. So that's probably what I'm scared about. I think in terms of what support do I need to achieve it, I think that there's been a big change over the last 18 to 24 months, obviously accelerated by COVID, and how open athletes are about advocating for particular social justice issues. And I think that has already started a transition in the minds of decision makers at the top of sport, for sure. But I think we need more people at the top of sport to be engaging in this topic and recognizing that this is not something we can deal with in 15 years. This is something that has, at least the steps need to be that's terrible English. We need to start taking steps now rather than later. But that it's a little bit of a vicious circle, because that comes back round to what is the appropriate steps for organizations and for athletes and for everybody involved in sport who believes in the positive value of it. What are the practical steps for them to take now in order to be a part of this movement around the SDGs and sustainable living?
That's good. There's definitely been a lot of changes, I think, that we've all seen throughout all levels of sport as well, which is both in positive in some aspects, and then also the more negative side of things too, with COVID especially. Angelica, how about for you? Both questions there.
So what I'm scared of is that people will always value money more than protecting the environment. Because in my research, based on what I saw, the technologies that are being developed to protect the environment are expensive, and using them will reduce the benefits. And some companies are not willing to do that, and that's what I'm scared of. Obviously, we are working hard to optimize the price, make it become competitive with fossil fuel based technologies. But what I'm scared of is how far people are willing to protect the environment. So, well, what support we need to achieve it is, foundings. It requires a lot of money to develop technologies. It requires a lot of energy and a lot of will to make a change in the world. So we need people willing to do it, and we need money to do it.
That's great. I've just been making little notes as well for feedback, etc. when we need to. I think we have a couple of minutes left from what I can tell from people talking still. So in that, let's try. I'm trying to think how we can extend that further as well. So are there any changes that you've seen recently that have given you any hope towards that, and helped waylay the parts that you might be scared about or worried about in any way? To either of you, obviously, as well.
You said positive changes?
Yeah.
Well, right now I live in the US, and one positive change is how the government is actually supporting renewable energies and supporting they're actually in favor of protecting the environment. So that's a big change, because universities, schools, labs are receiving more attention, more help in terms of developing technologies or ideas or techniques to help fight climate change. So I think that's a big step, because we need action from authorities, and that's actually good. a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my side, there's a couple of positive signs. Like, obviously, a lot of the larger sports organizations and major sports events owners, if I can use that terminology, are starting to look at things like CO2 audits, offsetting of carbon, replanting of forests. So I think these are positive moves. I think the big challenge for us there in the sports world is that we, you know, the sustainability movement itself is fast paced. And these types of offsets are already being challenged. So if we as the sports community are only just getting around to offsetting as a way to continue, and then the underlying science or recommendations change that offsetting is actually not sufficient, and neither is planting a small percentage of trees, where does that leave us as the sports community? You know, because we're a little bit behind the curve. So I think some positive there, but also some concerns. I think from the sporting goods side, I mean, there is now a number of brands, new entrants and existing market leaders who are looking at sustainable materials to develop their products. I think it will take some time before that trickles through to elite sport, but it's certainly been a popular move for the general public. So there are some positive moves. I guess the question is it enough?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be wrapping up in a minute or so as well. Do either of you want to feed back to the group? I think it might just be putting a message in the chat as opposed to speaking back, but I'm not quite 100% sure.
I would have been fine, but I have to jump off in 5 minutes, so I'm not sure that I'll be able to. But if I am on, I'm happy to say a few words.
Yeah, that's all good, don't worry. We'll double check how it's going to go. It looks like people are starting to slowly come back in at least, so we'll be called back to the main group in a second.
Otherwise, sorry, Angelica, you're going to be left in it.
Okay.
I'll see what it's going to be like in terms of if we can rearrange the groups a little bit so that we have a little bit more of a discussion as well coming in, but hopefully it should all go well as well. So just out of interest, how did you two find out about the event?
So because I went to Commonwealth Games for Scotland, the old team, I think they just sent out a message to all their old former athletes, or probably also the existing athlete list. And I thought, well, you know what, actually I'm going to listen in because it's a lot of learning from what's happening in the athlete movement at the minute as well.
I received this message from Maddie on Instagram, and she told me about it, and I decided to join.
It's really cool. It's always interesting to kind of figure out how people have found it, because I know that everyone can kind of come from a lot of different perspectives, whether that's through education or from teammates or other people. So it's really cool to hear. I'm just trying to think if there's anything additional to finish up, or I think in this case it's just possibly waiting for the last couple of seconds to tick away. Whereabouts are you based in the US, Angelica?
Sorry?
Whereabouts are you based in the US?
I'm in Oklahoma.
Very nice. It's one of the few places I have not been in the States. So.
They have extreme weathers, like it's either too hot or too cold.
Ooh. Are you still in Scotland, Emma?
No, I'm actually in Berlin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Bit of a change.
Yeah, no, I left Scotland a long time ago, actually. So I was in Switzerland for a few years and now in Berlin.
Very nice. So not so much weather-wise. I assume it's probably kind of similar, but
yeah, it's pretty much. I mean, Glasgow's always wetter. That's the tagline, right? But yeah, it's cold. We're quite close to the Polish border in Berlin, so it's East Europe weather.
Nice and chilly in that case. As I say, I think it's a little bit rainy outside at the minute, so that doesn't surprise me.
And so, Meredith, how did you get involved in this section at COP26?
So essentially, I kind of knew about it because I'm part of the sport ecology group that Maddie runs, and then heard about it. I was like, I wanted to come up to Glasgow anyway for the event because of my degree being based in sustainability. I was like, yeah, let's do this. I wasn't quite sure which day to come up until this event was being run, and I'm supposed to be participating later on. I was just like, I'll help out for the morning because I've got nothing else to do in Glasgow, and then got put here. So,
Oh, no.
yeah, it's
Thanks
interesting.
for the facilitation.
No worries. I'm happy to kind of help out, and especially because there's so few of us in this one.
Yeah.
I'm just all breakout rooms will close in 30 seconds as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to drop off soon, so I think I'm not gonna be able to do the reporting unless it's like in 2 seconds after this, just in case I have to leave.
No, that's all good. Don't worry. I'm sure we can, between myself and Angelica, cover it as well. If you want to put something in the chat, Angelica, when we get there. And yeah, thank you for kind of contributing and chatting. I hope it's been useful so far as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you in the main room.
Bye.
So great breakout room sessions. I've only heard really good things, which is really exciting to just get that feedback and see what people are saying. If you are in the online breakout rooms, please do share any feedback to those 3 questions in the chat. We're going to have a bit of a chat up here as well. But as they come in, I'll feed those into the conversation so we can kind of pick up and reflect on some of the pieces that came out of these questions of, what's holding you back, what's driving you forward, and what kind of support pieces might be needed to bridge that gap.
Brilliant, thank you. Guys, we had a part of a debate here, and a bunch of themes came up around, well, I'll open up to you about how it sort of feels to try and say what you care about in the world today. So do you want to add some thoughts?
Yeah, I think the theme that stood out for me in our discussion was as athletes, kind of like combining your 2 worlds, combining, your outside career or potential sponsorships or organizations that you work with, not wanting someone to speak out, and having different priorities and being able to find a path that you can speak on what you care about without huge financial losses or dealing with a lot of trolls on the internet and things like that. So kind of bridging where things might feel like an inconsistency.
And how to align those things. So, yeah, David.
Yeah, I think one of the things we touched on was feeling like a hypocrite when you talk about climate action, given the footprint of sport. And I think it really kind of gets to the bottom of this problem being one that we all have to face. And I really think honestly talking about it, that is really powerful, using sport as a way of saying, well, yeah, my job requires me to do all this travel at the moment, and we're going to have to be part of the solution. So what does that look like as a sport? What does it look like as an athlete to start to deal with that? And I think one of the other things that Joe mentioned earlier was you don't have to be a climate scientist to want a livable future and to want to be part of creating a better world for all of us. And I really think that's where athletes have a lot of power to be talking about how great the future could be if we're willing to actually deal with these huge challenges we're faced with.
100%. And I think, on just some of the themes that were coming out there, as well as some nice ideas around, yes, okay, to your point about being worried about being hypocrites, but actually, well, let's hit that head on. There was a nice expression in COP this week about setting your own climate budget. So yes, okay, you don't drive an electric car yet, but make sure you do something else so that the sort of the balancing act that you can play as you go on this journey. And because it becomes easier and easier as the rest of the world catches up to some degree. But then also, how do we support ourselves in aligning our institutions so that, because you care about this, making sure we find the sponsors that already care about that for you too, and the sports that we can put nice and positive pressure on the ecosystem around you, so that we can at least align, so that your voice is supported and it has more impact. And I think, helping build that ecosystem around us to do those things, so that it is easier, you feel protected, you've got friends around you to have that impact, I think was something that came out strongly for me.
And I think building this, having athletes around the world that you're seeing actually taking those steps to talk about things. I know, playing sport in Australia is very backward when it comes to climate action. We're one of the worst in the world. And so to see athletes in the UK or the US acting and sort of getting support and finding innovative ways to start telling these stories is really encouraging. We've got a long way to go in Australia, but I think we're starting to see more people joining the conversation and pushing for change.
I think our role a bit is to bring it close to home, like Joe was talking about how it was going to impact cricket specifically, but I think our role is also helping fans understand ways it's going to impact them personally to make them care. And I think maybe in Australia as well, but in the US, it's such a polarizing issue that people don't want to see how it could impact them. They just have their tribal associations with what's going on. So I think our role is really to bridge that and to make it more personal and to make it understandable to the average person. Yeah.
No, 100%. We've got some nice feedback from some of the groups here, so if I can just read them out. So we spoke about changing behaviors, specifically using the platform of sport to influence on a large scale with the emotional attachment to fans. What scared us was using the platform right, focusing on the right things or not missing an opportunity. The support that we identified was just to learn more and be able to come from a place of knowledge. So thank you, guys. Yeah, I think that's the main feedback there. Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, that's really around making sure that we are, I suppose, in timely in the right context when we're trying to say things, so that it has the right resonance with our fans or the collective fans, and also can have the maximum impact. So I suppose it's the knowledge flow between us all to say, hey, listen, this movement, this is a really good way to engage with fans on such and such a thing. Let's try this. Is some of the conversations maybe around how you frame a campaign, depending on what you're trying to do, and how we can get other sports to get behind you. If you're in rugby and you're in ice hockey and Joe's in cricket or whatever, then it's how do you create commonality across those things, so that we're part of the same team, but you're also able to seize the moment in a way that allows you to really have greater impact. So, great stuff.
I think there's a lot of momentum in a couple of athletes standing up and starting to speak about it. It makes it a lot easier for the next athlete and the next organization and the next sport to say, well, they're doing it, so maybe we can deal with something controversial. And I think it's nice to start that momentum. I think things like this really push that forward.
Yeah. No,
there was a couple of pieces of feedback that I want just your feedback on, the few of you here. Anik, who's in Canada, mentioned that the biggest pushback athletes get is around travel and flying, which is also something we had in our In the Room discussions. How can you be a climate champion and a world-class athlete that travels extensively? How does one respond to and justify that? And there were some interesting answers in the room, so I'm hoping you can pick that up.
I'm happy to. I guess Canada and Australia are probably fairly similar in terms of just how much fossil fuels we produce. And I've had a few good conversations with climate scientists, and their argument is that we've got the technology to decarbonize, 60, 80, 90% of our economy, and flying is that last little bit. So focusing on that shouldn't stop us from doing the bigger stuff that we can do right now. So I think that there's that, but it's also that honesty about saying, yeah, we're all living in societies that are based on fossil fuel use, and it's up to all of us to be talking about that. How do we actually deal with that? How do we start to change scheduling a bit to make it more efficient, and also be investing in technology to hopefully one day have, green hydrogen planes or whatever it might be.
Absolutely. And then there's another couple points here that come up around, Phil said that it's important to know how to tell a story and then have the knowledge to tell it well. And Melissa picked up that point, Melissa Wilson, just saying, you know, there are programs that are being developed, and Champions for Earth and Eco Athletes and MyCai, there's resources out there to learn this, to do this, and to, you know, continue to use those resources and reach out to those networks. And you know, it doesn't have to be a conversation that stops at this hour and a half, you know, session mark. So some interesting feedback there just about, you know, getting the right knowledge. And then one group said they talked about how to join together to amplify the message and reach the right decision makers. And so I guess we'll leave that as the last question before we move on to the next point. But do you have experience with or advice on reaching those decision makers, those key players in this, I guess, ecosystem of climate action?
I don't think I've personally gotten to a point of being at the policy level, but I do think it's interesting from piggybacking on what we were just talking about before, like the personal action versus the structure that you're working within. So we're operating in a world where flying is how you get around, and balancing making that policy change so that the personal sacrifices aren't on one individual to feel guilt about flying for their sport or for driving their kids to school, that it's a policy change that makes it easier to be eco, makes it the default to be, you know, a lower carbon world.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen the power of sport through history, and social change, and the way that it's affected politics. And I really think climate and environment is that next step for sport to be playing their part, to be forcing the issue with policymakers, because it, you know, it holds such a important part in so many societies, really, and can reach a much wider audience. And I think once you have your top athletes and fans saying, hang on, like, this is something that's really important to us, politicians go where the votes are. That's the challenge.
100%. Guys, we could talk about this for a very long time, and it's amazing. But we'd like to move on just to the next part, because we are running short on time. So I need to just move to the next one. You guys, don't worry, wait there, 2 seconds. So yeah, should move along. So we've got one final thing that's hopefully, so we'll click through. Just take its time. So in your breakout groups, you already have this sheet. And what we're trying to say is we've had a conversation around what we'd like to do, things we're worried about, and what it might take to be successful. So in the hope that we can leave this session to inspire you to think of other things, there's a bit of a framework that says, okay, if I wanted to come out of this room and maybe in your groups think of one of the things that you spoke about, one of the issues you'd like to impact, and go, brilliant, who should I need to communicate with? Who do I need to bring in? Who do I need to help me accelerate this impact? And what am I actually going to achieve? And if we can just sort of go through the questions on that, I think they're pretty self-explanatory, to say, actually, this now becomes my next steps. This is the things that I can potentially do to create a proper impact. And at the end of this, we're going to ask, not for anyone else in this group, to say, okay, if we could commit to one thing each, what should we do to take this session forward to impact? So we're going to break out again for about 10 minutes to talk about, okay, choose one goal within your group of what you've already been speaking about. We'd like to achieve these things, and then go through and just try and fill in some of these boxes to help break it down into, okay, these are the next practical steps I can take to achieve those goals. And we'll do that for about another 10, 15 minutes. Brilliant. Thank you, guys. You guys have been through this, at least, is actually, it's all very well to have this big and this thing that we're trying to change. But as we all know, that's the next actual practical steps to what are the ingredients I need to make so that I feel I could go away from this. If I go all into the finance, some brands that sit beside me and care about this. A media team has got my back. You know, all of these things would make me feel superhuman to go and really.
Hey there.
Hello.
To knock this in. And yeah, that's the idea. That's the idea. So I don't know if we can. So of the things we spoke about.
Okay, I have to mute the main stage cop. So we're only 3 people. Only 2 people here. I'm gonna move us. Hi, sorry about that. Little bit of technical difficulties just with trying to figure out how many people are in each breakout room. So I'm gonna move both of us to another room now so we can be in a bigger room because one of the people in our room is the main stage, which doesn't really work. Give me 1 second.
Some of the conversations that we were listening to online and what our moderators are telling us is how it's going, which is really quite exciting. But I'll leave you both to pick up what was happening here in the room, and I'll go grab that laptop for some feedback from the groups.
Great. Okay. Sure. Do you want to kick off? Well, our goal, the goal that the group came up with was actually around how do we create a network between all of the athletes globally to help us as a collective have positive impact on the things that we care about. That was is that right? Is that about the goal?
Yeah, basically that's essentially it. We want to sort of encourage collaboration because we were having this conversation in the room and we all come from different backgrounds and different sports, but we all sort of are working towards a common goal. And if we can bring athletes together from with various perspectives, whether from different countries, or everyone's going through different climate shocks and wants to take different climate action, but if we can all come together to work out the best and put our best foot forward together, then we've got a much greater chance of achieving something.
And then it was, so if we look at all the different elements that we can bring together, we spoke about what we wanted people to know, which was around well, there's a commonality of all the athletes together, and then I think the key elements of success and who are the cheerleaders. Again, we spoke about how that was mainly the our athletes themselves, as well as the sports and the brands to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're also saying that there's a big role to play for former athletes as well, who have obviously gained so much from their sports and want to give back. So feeding into that network as well, and bringing both past athletes together with current athletes, to work together towards that common purpose.
Brilliant. And then let's see what else we got up there. Some of the solutions that were available. Well, we spoke about the retired athletes as doing that, and resources we needed. I think it was mainly talking about knowledge and helping spread the knowledge, and actually helping all the other institutions that the athletes are members of look through the same lens. I think that was.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so we spoke a little bit about through different national bodies or sports bodies, and just making sure there's that education piece. Like we'll get sessions on nutrition, we get sessions on S&C practices, but to bring in that education session also on sustainability and how you as a player and you as a team can make a positive impact could work really well.
Brilliant. And so in the final right-hand box is, what does success look like?
So we said success would obviously be something like systemic change. That's a big ask. So just setting smaller goals, small sort of like bite-sized goals that you know that are achievable, and making sure everyone's working towards these goals. And if we're even just taking a few steps forward, looking at the overall overarching picture as well, and taking the positives and just knowing that end goal as well, but just taking step by step towards that. Brilliant.
Any other feedback from the other side? No, looks like we're good. Technical hitch. So thank you so much. So are we out of time now? Is it how are we doing for the 2 more minutes? Okay. Well, guys, I think what we wanted to try and leave with as we break away is not to just leave this hanging. So we don't have time for the session to do this now, but actually it's what's our next stage in terms of commitment. And what we will do as after the session is make sure that all of you who have been on the call, here physically and on the call virtually and online, will get access to all the information we've had. But also, if you have any questions, you want any help, what we're really keen to do is build this as the first stage of building a community. So that you guys can all get to know each other. You can talk to each other, you can interact with each other, we can help have each other's backs, solve problems together, take the next steps, learn from each other, call in and attack, deal with other sponsors and other things to help us all get those messages out there. That's very much what we want to try and encourage as the next steps from this. So off the back of this, we will send all this to you guys. If you want particular help, you want to look at your own purpose plans, just let us know. Equally, if you just got a question, come through to Maddie. There's a whole bunch of awesome people as part of this network to say, what do you think of this? Where can I get more knowledge? So look, all it leads me to do now is to say thank you so much for your honesty, your engagement, your energy, and the discussions we've had. And I hope you continue to have this discussion, and we help to sort of keep moving forward and making a positive impact on the planet. So thank you very much, everybody. Take care. So, do you know?
Yes.